The auctioned heart. The auctioneer's voice cracked like a whip across the town square. 18 years old, healthy, literate. What am I bid for Eliza Moore's debt contract? Eliza stood on the platform, the Wyoming sun burning through her threadbare dress, as men shouted numbers like she was horseflesh. Her father's gambling had taken everything, their land, their dignity, and now her freedom. She tried to breathe through the shame, tried not to see the leering faces. Then a quiet voice cut through the chaos. $500. The crowd went silent. A rancher she'd never seen raised his hand again. Final offer, $1,000. Before we begin Eliza's journey from auctioned girl to chosen woman, please hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's discover what happens when a desperate transaction becomes something neither of them expected. The hammer fell with a sound that echoed inside Eliza's chest like a death knell. Sold to Nathan Hale for $1,000. The crowd erupted in whispers. $1,000 was rancher money, serious money, the kind you didn't spend on a debt contract unless you were desperate or foolish. Eliza's legs trembled beneath her as the auctioneer gestured her down from the platform. She descended the wooden steps carefully, aware that every eye in Copper Ridge was watching her fall from respectable merchant's daughter to purchased help. The man who'd bought her contract stood apart from the crowd, hat pulled low against the afternoon glare. Nathan Hale. She'd heard the name. Everyone had. Widower. Kept to himself on a ranch somewhere in the hills. Had children, though no one saw them in town much anymore. He was perhaps 30, with the lean, weathered build of a man who worked from dawn to dusk. His face was all hard angles and sun-bronzed skin, and his eyes, when they briefly met hers, held no emotion she could read. Not cruelty, not kindness, just a flat, exhausted acceptance. "Get your things," he said. His voice was rough from disuse, like he wasn't accustomed to conversation. "I don't have things anymore." The words came out steadier than she felt. "The creditors took everything when they seized the store." Something flickered across his expression. Pity, maybe, or recognition. He nodded once. "Wagons this way." Eliza followed him through the dispersing crowd, feeling the weight of judgment in every glance. Sarah Mitchell, who'd once taken tea with Eliza's mother, turned away deliberately. Tom Brennan, the blacksmith's son who'd stammered through a proposal just 6 months ago, stared at his boots. She was no longer one of them. Whatever respectability her father's business had afforded her was gone, burned away in the same gambling halls where he'd destroyed himself. The wagon was utilitarian, built for hauling supplies rather than passengers. Nathan offered his hand to help her up, and Eliza took it, feeling the calluses that spoke of years of hard labor. She settled onto the bench beside him, acutely aware of the space between them, of how strange it was to sit beside a man who now legally held her contract for the next 5 years. "Where's your ranch?" she asked, as he guided the horses toward the edge of town. 2 hours north, up in the hill country." "I see." 2 hours away from everything she'd ever known. 2 hours from the life that had already ended. "And your children?" "Twins, Milo and Clara, 6 years old." He paused, jaw working like he was chewing words before spitting them out. "Their mother died 3 years back. Childbed fever." "I'm sorry." He didn't respond, just flicked the reins to urge the horses faster. Copper Ridge fell away behind them, and with it, the last threads connecting Eliza to her former life. The road north wound through stands of cottonwood and pine, climbing gradually into rougher country. The summer heat pressed down like a hand, and dust rose from the wagon wheels in pale clouds. "The others didn't last," Nathan said abruptly. Eliza turned to him. "Others?" "Housekeepers. Had 4 in 2 years, longest stayed 3 months. He kept his eyes on the road. "The twins, they're difficult, angry. They don't take to strangers. Because they're grieving. Because they're wild." His hands tightened on the reins. "I work the ranch dawn to dark. I can't watch them every minute. They need someone who won't run at the first sign of trouble." "And you think because you purchased my contract, I can't run?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his gaze made her breath catch. "I think a woman who can stand on that auction block with her head up has more steel in her spine than the ones who came before. I need that steel, Miss Moore. My children need it. The honesty surprised her. She'd expected coldness, perhaps cruelty masked as authority. Instead, she heard desperation underneath his rough words. A father drowning, reaching for anything that might save his family. "What exactly do you expect from me?" she asked quietly. "Keep the house. Cook. Mind the children. Help with the garden and preserving." He paused. "I paid a lot of money for your contract. I expect you to honor it. And if I don't meet your expectations..." His jaw clenched. "The contract is legal. You signed it. But I'm not a man who beats his help or demands more than honest work." He met her eyes. "You do your job, I'll do mine. 5 years will pass, and you'll have your freedom and the settlement payment. That's the bargain." It wasn't comfort, but it was something. Eliza nodded, turning her attention back to the road. The landscape grew wilder as they climbed, rocky outcroppings breaking through the earth like bones, stands of pine giving way to open meadows where cattle grazed. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way, like everything else about this new life. The sun was touching the western peaks when Nathan guided the wagon through a wooden gate and up a long drive. The ranch house came into view, a sturdy log structure with a wide porch, weathered but well-maintained. Outbuildings dotted the property: barn, stable, chicken coop, smokehouse. Beyond them, fenced pastures rolled toward the tree line. It was isolated, set in a valley with mountains rising on 3 sides. The nearest neighbor was probably miles away. "We're here," Nathan said, setting the brake. Before Eliza could respond, the front door banged open, and 2 small figures exploded onto the porch. The twins were mirror images, dark hair falling past their shoulders, sun-browned skin, bare feet. The boy wore patched trousers and a shirt that had seen better days. The girl's dress was practical homespun, the hem muddy. They stared at Eliza with identical expressions of hostile suspicion. "This is the new one?" the boy, Milo, demanded. "Mind your manners," Nathan said, climbing down from the wagon. "This is Miss Moore. She'll be staying." "The last one said that too," Clara said, crossing her arms. "She left after 2 weeks." "Miss Moore won't be leaving." Nathan's voice carried an edge of steel. "She's here to stay, and you'll treat her with respect." "Did you buy her like you bought Mama's replacement mirror?" Milo asked. The question was pointed, cruel in the way only children could be cruel when they were protecting wounded hearts. Nathan's face went hard. "Inside. Both of you. Now!" The twins didn't move immediately, holding their ground with the stubbornness of children who'd learned adults couldn't be trusted. Finally, Clara grabbed her brother's hand and pulled him back through the door, slamming it behind them. Nathan stood very still for a moment, staring at the closed door. Then he reached up to help Eliza down from the wagon. "I apologize for that." "They're testing me." Eliza brushed dust from her skirt, "trying to see if I'll break like the others." "Will you?" She thought about the auction block, about standing in front of the entire town while they decided her worth in dollars and cents, about watching her father drink himself to death while she tried to hold together a failing business, about the moment the creditors came, about losing everything. "I've already been broken, Mr. Hale," she said quietly. "What your children do won't be worse than what I've survived." Something shifted in his expression, respect maybe, or recognition of a fellow survivor. He nodded once, then grabbed a crate from the wagon bed. "I'll show you the house." The interior was dim after the bright afternoon sun. The main room served as kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. The furniture was simple but sturdy: table and chairs, a few wooden benches, shelves lined with mismatched dishes. Everything was clean but joyless, maintained out of necessity rather than care. No curtains softened the windows. No flowers graced the table. No touches that spoke of a woman's presence. The twins had vanished, but Eliza could feel them watching from somewhere, measuring her, waiting for her to fail. "Your room's through here," Nathan said, leading her down a short hallway. He pushed open a door to reveal a small bedroom, narrow bed, simple dresser, a single window looking out toward the mountains. "It's not much. It's more than I had yesterday." Eliza set her hands on the dresser, feeling the smooth wood. Her own space. Privacy. After weeks of sleeping in the church charity room, sharing space with 3 other destitute women, this felt like luxury. Children sleep across the hall. My room's at the other end. He shifted uncomfortably, as if realizing how intimate these arrangements were. I'll expect breakfast at dawn. The children usually wake around then. I'll be ready. He nodded, backing toward the door. There's bread and cheese in the cold box. Help yourself. I need to see to the horses. And then he was gone, leaving Eliza alone in this strange room that was now hers. She sat on the bed, feeling the unfamiliar mattress beneath her, and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of the day. Sold, purchased, brought to an isolated ranch to care for hostile children and manage a house that felt like a tomb. She could have cried. Part of her wanted to, but Eliza had learned that tears changed nothing. Action did. Choice did. And while she hadn't chosen to be sold at auction, she could choose how she faced what came next. Rising, she smoothed her dress and went to find the kitchen properly. If she was going to earn her keep, she might as well start now. The cold box yielded bread, cheese, butter, and some withered apples. Eliza found a knife and began slicing, her hands moving through familiar motions. She'd run her father's household for years before the end, had learned to make meals from scraps and leftovers. This kitchen was better stocked than she'd expected. Flour, cornmeal, dried beans, salt pork hanging in the larder. Nathan Hale might be rough around the edges, but he kept his pantry supplied. She was arranging bread and cheese on a plate when she heard the soft scuff of feet. Turning, she found both twins in the doorway, watching her with those same suspicious eyes. "Are you hungry?" Eliza asked, keeping her voice neutral. "We can feed ourselves," Milo said. "I'm sure you can. But I'm hungry, and I made enough to share." She set the plate on the table, adding the sliced apples. "You're welcome to join me." Clara looked at her brother. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Then, moving as one, they crept forward and climbed onto the bench across from her. Their movements were wary, ready to bolt at the first sign of threat. Eliza took a piece of bread and began eating, pretending not to notice when small hands reached for the cheese. They ate quickly, like they expected the food to be snatched away, and she was reminded again that these were children who'd lost their mother, who'd watched stranger after stranger come and go. "How old were you when she died?" Eliza asked quietly. Milo's head snapped up. "Who?" "Your mother." Clara's eyes filled with sudden tears. 3. We were 3. That's very young to lose someone you love. "What do you know about it?" Milo demanded. "You don't know anything about us." "You're right, I don't." Eliza met his hostile gaze steadily. "But I know what it's like to lose everything. My mother died when I was 10. My father destroyed himself gambling, and when he died, the creditors took everything we had. That's why I was on that auction block, because I had nothing left and no one to help me." The twins stared at her, processing this information. Finally, Clara spoke. "Did it hurt? Being sold?" "Yes." There was no point in lying. It hurt very much. It still hurts. "Then why are you here?" Milo asked. "Because I didn't have a choice. And because sometimes the only way forward is through the hurt." Eliza took another bite of bread, chewing slowly. "Your father says you're difficult, that you've driven away 4 housekeepers." "Good," Clara said fiercely. "We don't want them here. We don't want you here." "I understand that. You're protecting yourselves." Eliza leaned forward slightly. "But I'm not going anywhere. Your father paid a lot of money for my contract, and I intend to honor it. So we can spend the next 5 years fighting each other, or we can try to make this work. Your choice." Milo's jaw set stubbornly. "We'll make you leave like the others." "You can try." Eliza smiled faintly. "But I've stood on an auction block and survived. I think I can handle whatever you throw at me." For a long moment, the 3 of them sat in silence, measuring each other. Then Clara reached for another slice of apple, and Milo followed suit. It wasn't acceptance, not yet. But it was a beginning. Nathan found them like that when he came in from the barn, sitting at the table together, the plate of food half empty between them. He stopped in the doorway, surprise flickering across his face. "Time for bed," he told the twins. "Both of you, now." They slid off the bench without argument, but Clara paused beside Eliza's chair. "Your room is small," she said. "Smaller than Mama's was." "It's enough," Eliza replied. Clara studied her for another moment, then followed her brother down the hall. Their door closed with a soft click. Nathan remained in the doorway, watching Eliza with an unreadable expression. They talked to you. They tested me. There's a difference. The last housekeeper locked herself in her room the first night, said they put a snake in her bed. Did they? A garter snake, harmless. He moved into the kitchen, pouring himself water from the pitcher. I paid her what she was owed and sent her back to town the next morning. Why didn't you discipline them? He set the cup down hard. I tried. Doesn't work. They just get angrier. His voice carried years of frustration. I don't know how to reach them anymore. Used to when Martha was alive, but after she died, something broke. In them. In me. In this whole house. Eliza heard the grief underneath his words, raw and unhealed. You can't discipline away pain, Mr. Hale. They're not being difficult because they're bad children. They're being difficult because they're terrified. Terrified of what? Of loving someone who'll leave them. She began clearing the table, stacking plates with efficient movements. Every housekeeper who's come here proved them right. Adults can't be trusted. Love leads to loss, so they push people away before they can be abandoned again. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching her work. You figured that out in one evening? I recognized it. I'm not so different from them, Mr. Hale. I've learned the same lessons. She carried the plates to the wash basin. The difference is, I'm old enough to know that not every ending has to be a loss. Sometimes you have to risk the hurt to find something worth keeping. Is that why you didn't cry today? On the auction block? The question surprised her. She turned to face him, meeting his tired eyes. I cried plenty before today, but crying in front of those people would have given them something they didn't deserve. My vulnerability. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. You're stronger than you look. I've had to be. Eliza dried her hands on a towel. Your children need strength, Mr. Hale. Not someone who'll break at their tests. Not someone who'll prove their worst fears right by leaving. And you won't leave? She thought about the contract, about the 5 years stretching ahead, about this isolated ranch and these wounded children and this broken family she'd been purchased to help repair. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but then standing on an auction block hadn't been part of her plans either. I gave you my word, she said quietly. I'll honor it. 5 years. Nathan studied her face like he was searching for the lie, the weakness, the breaking point. Whatever he saw there seemed to satisfy him, because he nodded slowly. Dawn comes early. I'll wake you if needed. I'll be ready. He moved toward his room, then paused. Miss Moore? Yes? Thank you for not running. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Then he was gone, and Eliza was alone in the quiet kitchen, listening to the house settle around her. She finished cleaning, putting everything back in its place, learning the geography of her new domain. The house had good bones, she decided. Solid construction, well maintained despite the emotional neglect. It could be warm again, with effort, with care. In her small room, Eliza undressed in the gathering darkness, hanging her travel-stained dress on the single peg behind the door. The bed was comfortable, the pillow soft. Through the window, stars emerged in the vast Wyoming sky, bright and cold and impossibly distant. This was her life now. Purchased help on an isolated ranch, caring for children who didn't want her, and working for a man who barely spoke. 5 years of this. 5 years until she earned her freedom and the settlement payment. She should have felt trapped, should have felt the weight of those years pressing down like stones. Instead, lying in the darkness, Eliza felt something unexpected stirring in her chest. Not hope. That was too fragile, too easily crushed. But possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, these broken pieces could be reassembled into something new. She'd survived the auction block. She'd survived the judgment and the shame and the loss of everything familiar. She could survive this too. And perhaps, in surviving, she might find a way to actually live. The thought carried her into sleep, and when dawn broke over the mountains, Eliza Moore rose to face her first full day as part of the Hale household, ready to prove that she was worth every dollar Nathan had paid for her contract. The kitchen was dark when she emerged, but Eliza moved through it with growing confidence, finding kindling for the stove, locating the coffee tin, measuring out oats for breakfast. By the time Nathan appeared in the doorway, she had biscuits rising and bacon sizzling, filling the house with smells it probably hadn't known in years. He stopped, surprise clear on his face. "You didn't have to." "You're paying for a housekeeper," Eliza interrupted, cracking eggs into a bowl. "This is what housekeepers do." The twins came next, drawn by the smell of cooking food. They hovered in the doorway like wild things, uncertain whether to approach. "Breakfast is ready," Eliza announced, setting plates on the table. "Sit down before it gets cold." For a moment, no one moved. Then Nathan took his seat, and after a heartbeat's hesitation, the twins climbed onto the bench. Eliza served them all before taking her own place, and for the first time since Martha Hale died, the family ate breakfast together. It wasn't peace. Not yet. The twins barely spoke, and Nathan ate with the focused efficiency of a man who had work waiting. But it was a start. And starts, Eliza had learned, were sometimes all you needed. After that first breakfast, the days began to take shape around routine. Eliza woke before dawn, started the stove, prepared meals that brought the family to the table 3 times a day. She swept floors that hadn't seen a proper cleaning in months, beat dust from curtains that had hung limp and forgotten, scrubbed dishes until they gleamed. The work was endless, but it was honest work, and there was strange comfort in that. The twins watched her constantly those first weeks, waiting for her to fail or flee. They left mud tracked deliberately across freshly mopped floors. They forgot to collect eggs, forcing Eliza to search the barn herself. They answered her questions with sullen silence or outright defiance. Clara hid her hairbrush so Eliza couldn't help with her tangled hair. Milo knocked over the water bucket she'd just filled from the well. Eliza cleaned the floors again without comment. She found the eggs and made breakfast. She fashioned a comb from wood and worked the tangles from Claire's hair with patient fingers. She refilled the bucket and set it carefully out of Milo's reach. She didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't break. Nathan noticed, though he said little. He left at dawn to work the ranch, mending fences, tending cattle, all the labor that kept the property running. He returned at dusk, smelling of leather and sweat and honest work, ate whatever Eliza put in front of him with quiet appreciation, then disappeared into his room or his account books. He was a man who'd forgotten how to exist beyond survival, and Eliza recognized that kind of exhaustion bone deep. 3 weeks in, Clara came down with a summer cold. Nothing serious, just a cough and runny nose, but the girl was miserable. Eliza made her honey tea with lemon, tucked her into bed with extra blankets despite the heat, sat beside her and told stories from her own childhood until Clara's eyes grew heavy. "Your mama used to tell you stories?" Clara asked, her voice thick with congestion. "Every night. She knew hundreds of them." Eliza smoothed the blanket. Fairy tales and folk stories and made-up adventures about brave girls who saved kingdoms. "Did the girls always get saved by princes?" "Not in my mother's stories. In her stories, the girls saved themselves." Eliza smiled at the memory. She said waiting for rescue was a waste of perfectly good courage. Clara considered this, her small face serious. "I don't remember Mama's stories anymore. I try, but they're gone." The grief in those words was devastating. Eliza took the girl's hand gently. "Then I'll tell you new ones. Different stories for you to remember." "Why would you do that?" Clara's eyes were suddenly fierce. "You're just the housekeeper. You'll leave like the others." "I made a promise to your father. I keep my promises. Grown-ups always say that. Then they leave anyway." Eliza met her gaze steadily. "Your mother didn't leave because she wanted to, Clara. She left because sometimes bad things happen and we can't stop them. But I'm here, and I'm healthy, and I have no intention of going anywhere. You're stuck with me." Clara stared at her for a long moment, searching for the lie. When she didn't find it, something in her small face crumpled. "I miss her. I miss her so much, and I can't even remember what she looked like anymore." "Come here." Eliza gathered the girl into her arms as Clara began to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that spoke of 3 years of buried grief. She held her and rocked her and let her cry until there were no more tears, until Clara fell asleep against her shoulder, exhausted and empty. Nathan found them like that an hour later. He stood in the doorway, staring at his daughter sleeping peacefully in Eliza's arms, and something raw and broken crossed his face. "She hasn't cried since the funeral," he said quietly. "Hasn't talked about Martha at all. The doctor said children sometimes bury their grief, that it comes out other ways. The anger, Eliza said. The tests, the pushing people away. Yes. He moved closer, reaching down to brush Clara's hair from her face with rough, gentle fingers. How did you get her to let it out? I didn't. She chose to? Eliza shifted carefully, trying not to wake the sleeping child. She needed to know it was safe, that I wouldn't judge her for missing her mother or leave because her grief was inconvenient. Nathan's jaw worked. The others, they didn't have patience for the children's moods, said they were spoiled, needed firmer discipline. They weren't wrong about discipline, but you can't discipline away grief, Mr. Hale. You have to let it exist, let it be felt, before it can heal. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Eliza saw recognition in his eyes. You know about grief. I know about pretending you're fine when everything inside you is screaming. She managed a faint smile. I know about being so tired of hurting that you'd rather feel nothing at all. Is that what I do? Feel nothing? The question was so honest, so vulnerable, that Eliza's heart squeezed. I think you feel everything, Mr. Hale. You just don't let yourself show it because you're afraid if you start, you won't be able to stop. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his daughter. Then he reached down and lifted Clara carefully from Eliza's arms. I'll put her to bed. Thank you for this. Eliza watched him carry his daughter down the hall, and something shifted inside her chest. Nathan Hale wasn't the cold, distant man she'd first thought. He was just someone who'd been broken and never learned how to heal. She understood that completely. The next morning, Clara came to breakfast with red-rimmed eyes but a calmer demeanor. She sat beside Eliza instead of across from her, and when Eliza served her oatmeal, she whispered, "Thank you for the stories." Milo noticed immediately. Why are you being nice to her? He demanded. Because she was nice to me. Clara lifted her chin. And because she's not leaving. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Clara reached for the honey pot. She promised. Milo looked at Eliza with suspicion still bright in his eyes, but there was uncertainty there too. Like maybe, just maybe, he wanted to believe his sister was right. That afternoon, while Nathan was checking fence lines and Clara napped, Milo appeared in the kitchen where Eliza was kneading bread dough. Can you teach me to do that? He asked abruptly. Eliza glanced up, surprised. To make bread? Papa says men don't cook, but you said your mama told stories about girls who saved themselves. What about boys who can take care of themselves? Smart child. Eliza gestured to the counter. Wash your hands. I'll show you. For the next hour, they worked side by side. Eliza taught him how to knead until the dough was smooth and elastic, how to test if it had risen enough, how to shape it into loaves. Milo was serious and focused, asking questions, remembering her answers. His hands were small but capable, and he took obvious pride in the work. Why did your papa gamble everything away, Tsuk? He asked as they set the loaves to rise. The question was designed to hurt, to test whether Eliza would get angry or defensive. She recognized the tactic. Because he was sad and didn't know how to fix it, she said honestly. After my mother died, he tried to fill the empty space inside him with cards and whiskey, but sadness doesn't work that way. You can't gamble it away or drink it away. You just have to feel it until it gets smaller. Does it get smaller? Eventually, if you let yourself feel it instead of running from it. Milo wiped flour from his hands, his small face thoughtful. Is that why Clara cried yesterday? To make the sad smaller? Yes. I don't cry. I know. Papa doesn't either. Eliza looked at this serious 6-year-old boy who'd taken on the role of man of the house because his father was drowning in grief. Crying doesn't make you weak, Milo. Sometimes it makes you brave enough to keep going. He didn't respond, but something in his posture softened slightly. When the bread came out of the oven, golden and perfect, his face lit with genuine pride. I made that, he said wonderingly. I actually made bread. You did, and it's beautiful. Eliza set the loaves on the cooling rack. You're a natural baker. When Nathan came in for supper and saw the bread on the table, he raised his eyebrows. This is fine work. Milo made it, Eliza said. I just supervised. Nathan looked at his son with surprise. You did? Milo nodded, suddenly shy. Miss Moore taught me. She said boys should know how to take care of themselves, too. Something passed between father and son. Recognition, maybe, or the first thread of reconnection. Nathan reached over and ruffled Milo's hair, the gesture awkward but genuine. Good work, son. Your mama would be proud. Milo's eyes went bright with unshed tears, but he smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his face, made him look like the carefree child he should have been. That night, both twins came to say goodnight to Eliza before bed. Clara hugged her quickly, fiercely. Milo just stood in the doorway for a moment, then said, "Can we make cinnamon rolls tomorrow? If you help me with morning chores first." "Deal." After they'd gone, Nathan lingered in the kitchen, watching Eliza bank the fire for the night. "You're changing things," he said quietly. "I can see it happening. They're good children. They just needed someone to see past the armor." "It's more than that." He leaned against the doorframe, his expression thoughtful. "You treat them like people, not problems, like their feelings matter. Their feelings do matter." "The other housekeepers." He trailed off, shaking his head. "They saw the children as obstacles to manage. You see them as children who need understanding." Eliza set the poker aside and turned to face him. "I was a child who needed understanding once. My mother gave me that. After she died, no one else did. I won't do that to Clara and Milo. Even though you didn't choose to be here? Even though I bought your contract like you were livestock?" The bitterness in his voice surprised her. "Do you regret it? Buying my contract?" "I regret that the world is cruel enough that women have to sell themselves to survive. I regret that I participated in that cruelty." He met her eyes. "But no, I don't regret bringing you here. You're the first person who's made this house feel like a home in 3 years." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. Eliza's breath caught. "Mr. Hale." "Nathan. When it's just us, call me Nathan." "Nathan." His name felt strange on her tongue, too intimate for an employer and employee. "I'm doing the job you hired me for, nothing more." "It feels like more." "Because the job is more. You didn't just need a housekeeper. You needed someone who could reach your children, who could help heal what was broken." She straightened, meeting his gaze steadily. "But that doesn't change what I'm here. I'm contracted help, Nathan. 5 years. Let's not pretend it's anything else." He flinched slightly at the reminder, but nodded. "You're right. I apologize." "There's nothing to apologize for. We both know the terms." But as he walked away, Eliza pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat too fast. She wasn't lying. She was contracted help, purchased at auction, here because she had no other choice. But somewhere in the last few weeks, this had stopped feeling like captivity and started feeling like something else, something dangerous. She couldn't afford to care about Nathan Hale beyond professional respect. Couldn't afford to love these children beyond duty. Because in 5 years she would leave with her settlement payment and rebuild her life somewhere far from this isolated ranch. That was the plan, the only sensible plan. So why did the thought of leaving already hurt? The summer deepened, and with it the rhythms of the ranch. Eliza learned the land's geography, where the good fishing holes were, which pastures held the best grazing, where wild strawberries grew in secret patches. The twins led her on expeditions, testing whether she could keep up with their endless energy. She could, barely, and they seemed pleased by this. Clara taught her the names of all the chickens. Milo showed her the den where fox kits played at dusk. Together, they picked wildflowers and brought them back to fill jars on the kitchen table. Small touches of beauty that made the house feel lived in again. Nathan watched these transformations with something like wonder. He started coming home earlier, staying for supper instead of bolting his food and disappearing. He told stories about the cattle, about ornery bulls and clever cows, making the twins laugh with his dry delivery. Sometimes Eliza caught him looking at her across the table with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, certainly, but something deeper too. She tried not to notice, tried to maintain the professional distance that would protect them both. But distance was hard to maintain in close quarters, hard to maintain when Nathan helped her carry water from the well and their hands brushed, hard when she mended his shirts and had to imagine his body filling them, hard when he smiled, rare and beautiful as mountain gold, and her heart stumbled. One evening in late July, a summer storm rolled in fast and violent. Lightning split the sky and thunder shook the house. Clara came flying into Eliza's room, terrified, and climbed into bed beside her. "It's all right," Eliza soothed, holding the trembling child. "It's just a storm. We're safe inside." "Mama died during a storm like this," Clara whispered. It was raining when she stopped breathing. Milo appeared in the doorway, trying to look brave, but clearly frightened. Eliza lifted the blanket. "Come here, both of you." They climbed in on either side of her, and Eliza held them as the storm raged outside. She sang softly, old lullabies her mother had sung, songs about sunshine and safety and tomorrow. The twins gradually relaxed, their breathing evening out. Nathan found them like that near midnight. The storm had passed, and moonlight filtered through the window, illuminating the scene. Eliza with both children curled against her, all three of them peaceful in sleep. He stood there for a long time, just watching. Then he carefully lifted Milo, carrying him back to his own bed. When he returned for Clara, his hand brushed Eliza's shoulder. She woke instantly, disoriented. "Nathan?" "Storm's over. I'll take her back to her room." She was frightened. She said Martha died during a storm like this. Pain flashed across his face. "She did. I've tried to help them through storms, but they just remember—" He trailed off, lifting his sleeping daughter gently. "Let me come with you." Eliza rose, following him down the hall. They tucked Clara into bed together, and when they stepped into the hallway, Nathan caught her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being here. For them. For—" He swallowed hard. "For all of it." His hand was warm, calloused, strong. Eliza knew she should pull away, should maintain the boundary between employer and employee. Instead, she squeezed his fingers gently. "They're easy to love," she said. "They're not the only ones." The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and true. Eliza's breath caught. Nathan's eyes were dark in the dim hallway, filled with something that made her heart race. "We can't," she whispered. "I know. I'm contracted help. You bought me. This isn't— It can't be." "I know," he said again, but he didn't let go of her hand. "I'm sorry, Eliza. I'm sorry for how you came here. I'm sorry I participated in a system that forces women to be sold like property. I'm sorry for all of it." "Then why did you buy my contract?" "Because I was desperate. Because my children needed someone and I'd failed them so completely that I didn't know what else to do." His voice was raw with honesty. "Because when I saw you standing on that platform with your head up and your eyes forward, I thought, she's strong enough. She won't break. You needed strength. I needed you." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "And that's not fair to you. Nothing about this is fair. But I can't regret it because you've brought my family back from the dead." Eliza felt tears prick her eyes. "In 5 years I'll leave. That's the contract." "I know. We can't do this, can't feel this. It will only make everything harder." "I know that too." But still he held her hand, and still she didn't pull away. They stood there in the darkness, both of them knowing this was impossible, knowing nothing could come of these feelings, knowing they should walk away, and neither of them moving. Finally, Eliza forced herself to step back, to break the connection. "Good night, Nathan." "Good night, Eliza." She returned to her room and closed the door, leaning against it with her heart pounding. This was dangerous. This was foolish. She couldn't afford to love Nathan Hale, couldn't afford to imagine a future beyond her contract terms. But her heart, it seemed, had already made other plans. The morning after the storm dawned bright and merciless, as if the night's turbulence had never existed. Eliza woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the sound of birds chattering in the eaves. For a moment she let herself simply lie there, remembering the weight of Nathan's hand in hers, the raw honesty in his voice when he'd said those impossible words. Then she rose and dressed, braiding her hair with efficient fingers, and went to start breakfast. Whatever had passed between them in the darkness would have to remain there. In daylight, they had their roles to play, employer and employee, nothing more. But when Nathan appeared in the kitchen doorway, their eyes met and held for a fraction too long. The air between them felt charged, heavy with everything unsaid. Then Clara bounded in demanding pancakes, and the moment shattered into ordinary morning chaos. The twins seemed lighter that day, as if the storm had washed away some invisible weight. They chattered through breakfast, made plans for checking the creek to see if it had flooded, argued cheerfully about whose turn it was to feed the chickens. Nathan watched them with something like amazement, as if seeing his children truly happy was a phenomenon he'd forgotten existed. "Can Miss Eliza come to the creek with us?" Milo asked, syrup dripping from his chin. "Miss Eliza has work to do," Nathan said. "The work can wait an hour." Eliza surprised herself with the words, "If you don't mind me taking time away from the house." Nathan's expression softened. "I don't mind." So they went to the creek, all four of them, walking through meadows still damp with rain, the mountain air sharp and clean. The twins raced ahead, and Nathan fell into step beside Eliza, close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. "They're different," he said quietly, "since you came. It's like watching them wake up from a long sleep. They just needed permission to be children again. And I couldn't give them that. I was so buried in my own grief, I couldn't see theirs." He paused, picking up a smooth stone and turning it over in his palm. "Martha would have been ashamed of me, of how I let everything fall apart. Martha would have understood that grief isn't logical or fair, that it takes as long as it takes." Liza watched the twins splash in the shallow creek ahead. "You did the best you could, Nathan. You kept them fed and sheltered and safe. That's not nothing. It's not enough. No, but it's what you had to give at the time." She glanced at him. "You're doing better now, being more present. They notice." He was quiet for a moment, watching his children play. "I'm trying. It's hard letting myself feel things again. Easier to just work until I'm too tired to think." "I understand that completely." "I know you do. That's why—" He trailed off, but the unfinished sentence hung between them anyway. They reached the creek bank where the twins were hunting for interesting rocks. Clara had hiked her skirt up to her knees and was wading fearlessly through the current. Milo crouched on a flat boulder, studying something in the shallows with intense concentration. "Papa, look!" Clara held up a piece of quartz that caught the light. "It's beautiful." "It is. You should keep that one." "That." Nathan's voice was warm, genuine. Then he turned to Eliza. "Can you swim?" "I never learned." "Never?" He looked surprised. "You grew up in a town with a river running through it." "My father didn't approve of girls swimming, said it wasn't proper." Eliza smiled faintly. "There were a lot of things he didn't approve of." Nathan studied her face. "Did you always do what he approved of?" "Until I had no choice but to do otherwise." She met his gaze. "Sometimes following the rules just leads to a different kind of prison. And now you're in an actual prison, because of me." "This isn't a prison, Nathan. It's a job. There's a difference." "Is there?" "When you can't leave, when you're bound by legal contract. When I stood on that auction block, I had nothing. No home, no family, no prospects except charity work or worse." Eliza turned to face him fully. "You gave me a place where I'm needed, where my work matters, where I can make a difference in two children's lives. That's not imprisonment, it's purpose." He looked at her like she'd said something profound instead of simply true. "You humble me, Eliza Moore." "That's not my intention. I know, that's what makes it powerful." He glanced back at the twins. "They love you. You know that, don't you? They're learning to trust me. That's not the same as love. It's the beginning of love, and for children who've been afraid to love anyone for 3 years, that's everything." Before Eliza could respond, a shout split the air. They both turned to see Milo standing on his boulder, pointing downstream. "Papa, there's a calf stuck in the mud!" Nathan was moving before Milo finished speaking, Eliza right behind him. They found the animal 50 yards downstream, a young heifer mired in thick mud where the bank had collapsed during the storm. The calf was bawling in distress, struggling weakly, sinking deeper with each movement. "She's been here a while," Nathan assessed, already pulling off his boots. "Probably wandered down during the storm and got trapped when the bank gave way." "Can you get her out?" Clara asked, frightened. "I'm going to try. Eliza, keep the children back. This mud is dangerous." But as Nathan waded into the muck, it became clear one person wouldn't be enough. The calf was heavy, and the suction of the mud was fierce. He managed to get a rope around her shoulders, but when he tried to pull her free, she panicked and thrashed, nearly taking Nathan down with her. "I need help," he gritted out. Eliza didn't hesitate. She kicked off her shoes and waded in, ignoring the cold shock of the mud sucking at her legs. "Tell me what to do." "Grab the rope. When I say pull, you pull with everything you've got." They positioned themselves on either side of the struggling calf. The mud was chest deep now, thick and clinging. Eliza could feel it trying to drag her down, feel the danger in every movement. "Ready?" Nathan's face was set with determination. "Pull." They heaved together. The calf bawled and struggled. For a moment nothing happened, just straining muscles and burning lungs and the awful resistance of the mud. Then, inch by inch, the calf began to move. "Keep pulling," Nathan shouted. "Don't stop." Eliza pulled until her arms screamed, until she thought her shoulders would separate. The twins were yelling encouragement from the bank. The calf made one final desperate lunge, and suddenly she was free, scrambling up the bank in a shower of mud and water. Eliza lost her balance in the sudden release of tension. She felt herself falling backward, the mud reaching up to claim her. Then Nathan's arm caught her waist, hauling her upright with surprising strength. They stood there in the mud, breathing hard, Nathan's arm still around her. Eliza could feel his heart pounding against her back, could feel the warmth of his body through their sodden clothes. For a moment, neither of them moved. "You all right?" he asked, his voice rough. "Yes. You?" "Fine." But he didn't let go. "Papa! Miss Eliza, you're covered in mud!" Milo's delighted voice broke the spell. Nathan released her, and they waded back to shore, where the twins were laughing at their bedraggled state. Eliza looked down at herself. Mud caked her dress from chest to hem, her hair had escaped its braid, her hands were black with muck. She must have looked absolutely ridiculous. She started laughing. She couldn't help it. Nathan joined in, and then the twins, and they stood there by the creek in the bright morning sun, laughing until their sides hurt. "You saved the calf," Claire said proudly. "Both of you together." "We did." Nathan looked at Eliza with something warm and complicated in his eyes. "Good teamwork, Miss Moore." "Likewise, Mr. Hale." They walked back to the ranch still covered in mud, the rescued calf trailing behind them like a grateful puppy. The twins peppered them with questions about the rescue, acting out the dramatic moments with enthusiastic gestures. It felt like a family outing, Eliza realized, like they belonged together. The thought should have frightened her. Instead, it settled into her chest like warmth. Back at the house, Nathan headed to the barn to properly check the calf, while Eliza heated water for baths. She scrubbed the twins first, getting them clean and dressed, then tackled her own mud-caked self. The hot water felt like heaven on her strained muscles, and she let herself soak for a few extra minutes, thinking about Nathan's arm around her waist, about working together to save that calf, about how natural it had felt. She was in dangerous territory, she knew it, but knowing didn't seem to make any difference. That evening, Nathan came to supper freshly washed, his hair still damp. The calf was fine, he reported, already reunited with her mother in the pasture. The twins celebrated this news with extra helpings of the berry cobbler Eliza had made, and the meal stretched into comfortable conversation. After the children went to bed, Nathan lingered in the kitchen while Eliza cleaned up. "Thank you for today," he said, "for helping with the calf. You didn't have to wade into that mud." "Yes, I did. You needed help." "Most women would have stayed on the bank." "I'm not most women." Eliza set a clean plate on the drying rack. "And that calf needed both of us. One person couldn't have done it alone." He moved closer until he was standing beside her at the wash basin. "We make a good team." "For rescuing livestock, certainly. For more than that, I think." His voice was quiet, serious. "Eliza, I know I shouldn't say this. I know it's inappropriate and crosses every line between employer and employee, but I have to be honest with you." Her heart began to race. "Nathan, I'm falling in love with you." The words came out rough but sure. "Maybe I have been since the day I saw you on that auction platform, refusing to break. Maybe it started later, watching you bring life back to this house. I don't know when it happened, but I know it's true." Eliza's hands stilled in the dishwater. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You can't love me. I'm contracted help. You bought me. I know. That's what makes this so impossible. He reached over and gently took one of her wet hands in both of his. I hate that I bought your contract. I hate that you're here because you had no choice. But I can't hate that you're here, Eliza. I can't regret knowing you. In 5 years, I'll leave. Her voice came out whispered. That's the agreement. Then we'll have 5 years. His thumbs traced circles on her palm. Or we'll renegotiate the contract, or we'll figure something else out. But I can't pretend I don't feel this. I can't keep lying to both of us. Eliza looked up at him, at this strong, broken man who'd somehow found his way back to living. I feel it too, she admitted. I've tried not to. I've tried to remember my place, to keep proper distance, but I feel it anyway. So what do we do? I don't know. She turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers together. This is complicated, Nathan. The power difference alone. I would never use the contract against you. Never use my position to force anything. I know that, but others won't see it that way. If people find out, they'll say I had no choice, that you took advantage. Do you feel like I'm taking advantage? No, but my feelings don't change what this looks like from the outside. Nathan was quiet for a moment, his jaw working. Then he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Then we keep it between us. For now. Until we figure out what this is and where it's going. And the children? The children already love you. That won't change. He smiled faintly. Though Milo did ask me last week if you were going to be his new mama. Eliza's breath caught. What did you tell him? That you're our housekeeper and friend, that whether you stay beyond your contract is up to you. He squeezed her hand gently. I won't trap you here, Eliza. Whatever happens between us, you'll always have a choice. That's more than most women get. It's the least you deserve. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, hands joined, acknowledging something neither of them could name, but both of them felt. Then Eliza gently pulled away, returning to her dishes. We should be careful, she said. Take this slowly. Agreed. But when she glanced at him from the corner of her eye, she saw him smiling. And despite all the complications, despite every reason this was foolish and dangerous, she found herself smiling too. The next weeks passed in a strange, sweet tension. Nathan and Eliza were careful in front of the twins, maintaining professional distance. But in small moments, a brush of hands while passing dishes, a shared look across the table, conversations that stretched late into the evening after the children slept, something grew between them. Something warm and real and terrifying. The twins continued to blossom. Clara lost her haunted look, became more openly affectionate, started calling Eliza Liza instead of Miss Moore. Milo's defensive walls crumbled bit by bit until he was chattering freely about his day, seeking Eliza's opinion on everything from the best fishing spots to whether frogs could really predict rain. One afternoon in early September, Eliza was in the garden harvesting the last of the summer vegetables when she heard horses approaching. She straightened, shading her eyes against the sun, and saw 3 riders coming up the drive. Visitors were rare this far from town. Nathan emerged from the barn, his expression wary. Eliza recognized the wariness. He wasn't accustomed to company, didn't welcome intrusion into their isolated world. The lead rider was a woman perhaps 40 years old, well-dressed in traveling clothes that marked her as someone of means. The 2 men with her had the look of ranch hands. Nathan Hale, the woman called. That's me. What can I do for you? I'm Margaret Winters. I believe you know my brother, Thomas. Nathan's face went carefully blank. I know Thomas. Then you know he's been looking to expand his holdings. He's made you several offers for this property over the years. And I've refused them all. Nothing's changed. Margaret dismounted with practiced ease, handing her reins to one of the men. Perhaps something has changed. Thomas tells me you've been struggling since your wife died, that you've had trouble keeping help, that the ranch has been declining. Eliza felt ice settle in her stomach. This woman was here to make trouble. My ranch is doing fine, Nathan said coldly, and my personal business is none of Thomas's concern. He's concerned as a neighbor and friend. Thomas Winters is neither. Nathan's voice cut like a blade. He's a land grabber who's been circling this property like a vulture since my father died. You can tell him the answer is still no. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Then her gaze landed on Eliza, still standing in the garden, and something calculating entered her expression. And who might this be? My housekeeper, Miss Moore. Your housekeeper? Margaret looked Eliza up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. How very convenient. A young woman, isolated out here with you and your children. I'm sure the good people of Copper Ridge would be very interested to know about these arrangements. Eliza felt her face flame. The insinuation was clear, insulting, designed to shame. But before she could respond, Nathan stepped forward. Be very careful what you say next, Mrs. Winters. Miss Moore is a respectable woman who works for wages. If you're implying anything else, you're wrong, and you owe her an apology. I'm simply noting how it looks. Margaret smiled, cold and sharp. A widow, a young housekeeper, children who need a mother. It's quite a romantic picture, but romance doesn't pay bills, Mr. Hale. Thomas's offer is generous, more than generous, considering the state of the property. Get off my land. Nathan, now. His voice was steel. Before I forget my manners entirely. Margaret's smile faded. She remounted with stiff dignity. Thomas won't give up, you know. He wants this land, and he's patient. Eventually, you'll make a mistake. And when you do, he'll be there to take advantage. She wheeled her horse and rode off, her men following. Nathan stood rigid until they disappeared down the drive, then turned to Eliza. I'm sorry you had to hear that. She had no right. She's going to spread rumors. Eliza's voice shook slightly. About us. About impropriety. Let her. Anyone who knows me knows I wouldn't dishonor you that way. But they don't know me, Nathan. I'm the woman who was sold at auction. In their eyes, I'm already fallen. She pressed her hands to her flushed cheeks. This will hurt your reputation, and worse, it will hurt the children. He crossed the distance between them, taking her shoulders gently. Listen to me. I don't care what Margaret Winters or her snake of a brother think. I don't care what the town gossips. What matters is the truth. That you're here doing honest work, that you've helped my family heal, that everything between us has been proper and right. Has it been proper? Eliza looked up at him. We're falling in love, Nathan. That's not proper for an employer and employee. No, but it's human. It's real. His hands tightened on her shoulders. And I refuse to be ashamed of it. Before Eliza could respond, twin shouts erupted from the house. They both turned to see Clara stumbling out the door, her face flushed and strange. Papa, she cried. I don't feel good. I don't. She swayed, and Nathan caught her before she fell. His hand went to her forehead, and he swore. She's burning up. Eliza, check Milo. Eliza ran inside and found Milo curled on the floor by the fireplace, shivering despite the warm day. When she touched his forehead, heat radiated from his skin like a stove. Nathan, she called. Milo too. What followed was a blur of controlled panic. They got both children into bed, stripped them down to try to cool the fevers. Eliza made willow bark tea while Nathan rode for the doctor, pushing his horse hard. The twins tossed and moaned, their temperatures climbing to terrifying heights. Eliza bathed their faces with cool cloths, made them sip water even when they protested, held them when they cried for their mother. The afternoon stretched into evening, and still the fevers climbed. She'd never felt so helpless, so terrified. Nathan returned with the doctor just after sunset. Dr. Morrison was an older man, calm and thorough. He examined both children carefully while Eliza hovered, wringing her hands. Fever, he pronounced. Probably caught something from one of the other children in town last time you went for supplies. It's going around. He looked at Nathan seriously. It's dangerous, but most children pull through if you can keep the fever from getting too high. Cool baths, plenty of fluids, willow bark tea for the pain. And watch them. Every minute. If they start having convulsions or the fever spikes higher, send for me immediately. How long? Nathan's voice was rough. Could break in a day. Could take 3 or 4. Morrison packed his bag. I'll check back tomorrow, but mostly it's just waiting and watching. After he left, Nathan and Eliza stood in the hallway between the children's rooms, looking at each other with matching fear. "We'll take shifts," Eliza said. "You watch one, I'll watch the other. Every 2 hours we switch so we can rest." "I can't sleep, not while they're like this." "You have to. We both do, or we'll be useless." She took his hand, squeezing hard. "We can do this, Nathan. Together, like the calf." He pulled her into his arms suddenly, holding her tight. "I can't lose them. I can't survive losing them too." "You won't." Eliza wrapped her arms around him, offering what comfort she could. "We won't let that happen." They set up their vigil, trading off through the night. Eliza sat beside Clara, bathing her fevered skin, changing sweat-soaked sheets, whispering reassurances when the girl cried out in delirium. Across the hall, she could hear Nathan doing the same for Milo. The house felt suspended in time, holding its breath, waiting. The first night was endless. The second day brought no relief. The fevers held, relentless and cruel. Eliza moved through exhaustion into a strange, crystalline alertness born of desperation. She barely ate, couldn't sleep even when Nathan took over Clara's care. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that little girl's flushed face, heard her labored breathing. On the third night, Clara's fever spiked. She began seizing, her small body rigid with convulsions. Eliza screamed for Nathan, and together they held her, helpless and terrified, until the seizure passed. "Should I ride for the doctor?" Nathan asked, his face gray. "There's nothing more he can do. We just have to wait." But Eliza's voice shook. She was losing faith, losing hope. Nathan pulled her close, both of them kneeling beside Clara's bed. "I can't do this without you," he whispered into her hair. "If you weren't here, but I am here. We're here together." They stayed like that, holding each other and holding Clara through the darkest part of the night. Across the hall, Milo's fever finally broke near dawn. His skin cooled, his breathing eased, and he fell into natural sleep for the first time in 3 days. But Clara's fever held. Eliza sat beside her as the sun rose, exhausted beyond measure, watching this child she'd come to love fight for her life. Nathan stood at the window, his shoulders rigid with tension, and Eliza knew he was reliving another sunrise, another vigil, another woman he'd loved slipping away. "Talk to her," Eliza said suddenly. Nathan turned. "What?" "She needs to hear your voice, needs to know you're here and she's safe." Eliza took Clara's small hand. "Tell her about her mother. Tell her she's loved. Give her something to fight for." Nathan crossed to the bed and knelt beside his daughter. When he spoke, his voice was rough with unshed tears. "Clara, sweetheart, it's Papa. I need you to listen to me." He smoothed her damp hair back. "You're so strong, just like your mama was. She fought hard when you and Milo were born. Fought to bring you both into this world safe. And she'd want you to fight now." He talked for an hour, telling stories about Martha, about the day the twins were born, about how proud he was of the girl Clara was becoming. Eliza listened, learning about the woman who'd come before her, feeling no jealousy, only sadness for all that had been lost. And slowly, impossibly, Clara's fever began to break. By mid-morning, both children were sleeping peacefully, their foreheads cool, their breathing easy. The crisis had passed. Eliza stood in the hallway, swaying with exhaustion and relief. Nathan caught her before her knees gave out, lifting her easily in his arms. "I've got you," he murmured, carrying her to her room. "You can rest now. They're safe." He laid her on the bed and started to pull away, but Eliza caught his hand. "Stay, please, just for a minute. Nathan lay down beside her, fully clothed, on top of the covers. Eliza curled against him, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. His arms came around her, holding her close. "We did it," she whispered. "We saved them. You saved them. You saved all of us." His voice was thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here. If I'd had to face this alone." "But you didn't have to. That's the point." Eliza closed her eyes, feeling sleep pulling at her. "We're a team. She didn't finish the sentence. Exhaustion claimed her, and she fell asleep in Nathan's arms, safe and whole and exactly where she belonged. When Eliza woke, the afternoon sun was slanting through her window and Nathan was gone. She lay there for a moment, remembering the weight of his arms around her, the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. Then reality crashed back. The children, the fever, 3 days of terror, and she bolted upright. Her legs were unsteady as she hurried down the hall. Claire's room was empty, the bed neatly made. Panic seized her until she heard voices from the kitchen, children's voices, bright and alive. She found them all at the table. The twins were eating soup, still pale but alert, their eyes clear. Nathan sat between them, watching them eat with an expression of such profound relief that Eliza's throat tightened. "Miss Eliza!" Claire's face lit up. "You're awake! Papa said you were sleeping because you stayed up taking care of us." "I did." Eliza crossed to them, checking Claire's forehead, then Milo's. Both were cool, normal. "How do you feel?" "Tired," Milo said, "and hungry. Papa made soup, but it's not as good as yours." "I heard that," Nathan said mildly, but his eyes, when they met Eliza's, were warm with gratitude and something deeper. "It's true," Claire added loyally. "Your soup is better, Miss Eliza. Papa's is too salty." "My soup kept you alive, young lady. Show some respect." But Nathan was smiling, actually smiling, and the twins giggled. Eliza sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the normalcy of it. After 3 days of fear and vigil, this simple scene, children eating soup, gentle teasing, afternoon sunlight, felt like a miracle. "Dr. Morrison came by while you were sleeping," Nathan said. "He checked them both. Said they're through the worst of it. They need rest and good food, but they'll be fine." "Thank heaven." Eliza pressed her hands to her face, feeling tears threaten. "I was so frightened." "We know." Clara reached over and patted her hand. "Papa said you didn't sleep for 3 days, that you sat with me when I was sick and sang me songs." "I did sing, didn't I?" Eliza smiled through her tears. "I'm not sure my singing helped, but it was all I had to offer." "It helped," Nathan said quietly. "It helped more than you know." Their eyes held across the table, and Eliza saw everything he wasn't saying in front of the children. She saw his fear, his gratitude, his love. She saw the moment 3 nights ago when they'd knelt together beside Claire's bed, holding each other because it was the only thing that kept them from breaking. Something had shifted during that vigil. Some final wall had crumbled. They both knew it. "Can Miss Eliza stay with us forever?" Milo asked suddenly. "Not just 5 years. Forever." The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. Nathan's expression went carefully neutral. Eliza felt her heart stutter. "That's up to Miss Eliza," Nathan said carefully. "Her contract is for 5 years. After that, she's free to go wherever she chooses." "But what if we want her to stay?" Claire's voice was small, uncertain. "What if we need her?" "Then we'd ask her," Nathan said, "and hope she'd want to stay too." Both children turned to look at Eliza with identical expressions of hope and fear. She saw herself reflected in their eyes, the person who'd stayed when others left, who'd fought for them through the fever, who'd become essential to their healing. "I'm not going anywhere right now," she said gently. "Right now, I'm exactly where I need to be." It wasn't a promise of forever, but it was enough. The twins relaxed, returning to their soup. Nathan's hand found hers under the table, squeezed briefly, then let go before the children noticed. The next days passed in careful recovery. The twins grew stronger, though they tired easily. Eliza kept them quiet, reading stories and playing gentle games. Nathan hovered, checking on them constantly, as if afraid they might vanish if he looked away. A week after the fever broke, Margaret Winter's prediction came true. The rumors reached them through Dr. Morrison, who mentioned casually that there was talk in town about Nathan's young housekeeper, about impropriety, about a widower and a woman living in isolated circumstances. Nathan's face had gone hard as stone. "Let them talk." "They're saying she was sold at auction because she was ruined," Morrison continued, clearly uncomfortable. "That no respectable woman would accept such a position. That you took advantage. Anyone who knows Eliza knows that's a lie. Perhaps, but you know how people are. They love to think the worst." Morrison had glanced toward where Eliza was reading to the twins in the other room. "I'm telling you this as a friend, Nathan. Be careful. These rumors can destroy reputations." After Morrison left, Nathan found Eliza in the garden, pulling weeds with sharp, angry movements. "You heard," he said. The window was open. She didn't look up. Margaret Winters works fast. I don't care what they say. You should. Eliza sat back on her heels, wiping dirt from her hands. You have children to think about. If people believe these rumors, it will affect Clara and Milo. Other children won't play with them. Parents won't invite them places. Then we don't go to town. That's not a solution. That's hiding. She stood, facing him. Nathan, maybe I should leave. Find another position somewhere else. It would stop the talk. His face went white. No. It might be best. No. He crossed to her, taking her shoulders. I will not let gossip drive you away. I will not lose you because small-minded people can't see the truth. What is the truth? Eliza asked softly. That there's nothing improper between us? We both know that's not entirely accurate anymore. Nathan's jaw clenched. Nothing has happened that either of us should be ashamed of. But something is happening. We both feel it. And as long as I'm your contracted employee, anything between us will look like coercion, like you taking advantage of your position. So what are you saying, that we can never— He stopped, frustrated. That these 5 years have to be all we get? I'm saying the contract complicates everything. It makes what we feel questionable. It gives people ammunition for their rumors. They stood in the garden, the autumn sun warm on their shoulders, facing an impossible situation. Nathan loved her. She loved him. But the circumstances of how she'd come to be here poisoned everything. There might be a way, Nathan said slowly. I could release you from the contract early, pay you the full settlement now. You'd be free to leave or stay as you chose. Hope and fear warred in Eliza's chest. If I stayed after that, people would say I was your mistress. That would be worse for the children. Not if we were married. The words fell between them like stones in still water, sending ripples in every direction. Eliza stared at him, unable to speak. Nathan continued, the words coming faster now, like he'd been holding them back and they were finally breaking free. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I love you, Eliza. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you brought my family back to life. The twins love you. And if we were married, no one could say anything. You'd be my wife, not my employee. The rumors would stop. Nathan, you can't marry me just to silence gossip. I'm not. I'm asking you to marry me because I want to spend my life with you. Because the thought of you leaving in 5 years makes me feel like I'm drowning. Because you're already part of this family, and I want to make it official. He took her hands, his expression earnest and vulnerable. I'm asking because I love you, and I hope, you might love me too. I do love you. The admission came out whispered. But marriage is a huge step, and the children asked me last night when you were going to be their new mama. They want this, Eliza. We all do. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. I was sold at auction like livestock. I came here because I had no choice. How do we know my feelings are real and not just gratitude or survival instinct? Do you feel grateful when I walk into a room and your heart speeds up? Is it survival instinct that makes you smile when you hear my voice? Nathan stepped closer, still holding her hands. I know how you came here was wrong. I know the power imbalance is real, but what we feel now, what we've built together, that's real too. And you have a choice now. You can say no. You can ask for your release and leave tomorrow. I'd honor that. But what would I be leaving? Eliza looked up at him, seeing her future reflected in his eyes. A man I love. Children I've come to cherish. A home where I'm needed and valued. Why would I choose to walk away from that? Then don't. Stay. Marry me. Be part of this family officially, legally, in a way that no one can question. His voice roughened. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Not as my employee, but as my partner, my equal, my wife. The word hung between them, full of promise and possibility. Wife. Not housekeeper, not contracted help. Wife. The town will still talk, Eliza said. They'll say it's suspicious, that you married me too quickly. Let them. Eventually they'll see the truth, that we're a family, that this is real, that our love isn't something to be ashamed of. Nathan brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I'm not asking for an answer right now. Think about it. Pray on it if you're inclined. But know that I'm serious. I want to marry you, Eliza Moore. I want to build a life with you. Before Eliza could respond, Clara's voice called from the house. Miss Eliza, Milo put a frog in my shoe again. Did not, Milo's indignant shout followed. Did too, come see. Nathan smiled ruefully. Duty calls. Go, I'll be there in a moment. Eliza needed time to think, to breathe, to process what had just happened. He started to walk away, then turned back. Eliza, whatever you decide, I meant what I said. You have a choice, real choice, and I'll respect whatever you choose. Then he was gone, leaving Eliza standing in the garden with her heart pounding and her mind racing. Marriage. To Nathan Hale, becoming stepmother to Clara and Milo officially, legally, having a home, a family, a place to belong. It was everything she'd lost when her father destroyed their lives, everything she'd thought she'd never have again. But was it real? Or was she so desperate for security that she was confusing gratitude with love? She thought about the way her heart lifted when Nathan smiled, the warmth that flooded her when he walked into a room, the sense of rightness she felt working beside him, whether rescuing calves from mud or fighting fevers through the night, the way his touch made her feel cherished and safe and alive. That wasn't gratitude. That was love. And the children, she genuinely adored them. Not because she had to, but because they'd won her heart with their courage and vulnerability and fierce love. They'd tested her and pushed her, and somewhere in that process they'd become hers in every way that mattered. She could leave in 5 years with her settlement payment and her freedom. Start over somewhere new, build an independent life. Or she could stay, could choose this imperfect, complicated, beautiful family, could accept Nathan's proposal and make this ranch her permanent home. The choice was hers, truly hers. And suddenly, she knew what her answer would be. That evening, after the twins were in bed, Eliza found Nathan on the porch. He was leaning against the railing, staring out at the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. Can't sleep? She asked, joining him. Thinking. He glanced at her. You don't have to answer yet. Take all the time you need. I don't need more time. Eliza took a deep breath. I need to know something first. If I say yes, I need to know this is a real marriage, not a business arrangement to stop gossip, not a convenient solution to the housekeeper problem. Real partnership, real commitment. It would be real. Nathan turned to face her fully. I want a wife, Eliza, a partner, someone to build a life with. I want to share my bed and my name and my future with you. I want to make more children with you if we're blessed that way. I want to grow old with you. Is that real enough? Heat flooded Eliza's face at the mention of sharing his bed, but she held his gaze. And the contract? My debt? I'll burn it tomorrow. You'll owe me nothing. Everything I have would be yours as my wife. The ranch, the accounts, all of it. Equal partners in everything. The twins might struggle with this. They loved their mother. They did. They always will. Nathan's expression softened. But they love you too, Eliza. Differently, but just as real. You're not replacing Martha. You're adding something new to our family. Something we all need. Eliza looked out at the darkening landscape, at this wild, beautiful country that had become home. She thought about standing on that auction block months ago, certain her life was over. And now here she was, being offered everything she'd thought she'd lost forever. Yes, she said quietly. My answer is yes. I'll marry you. Nathan went very still. You mean it? I mean it. She turned to him, taking his hands. I love you. I love your children. I want to be part of this family officially. I want to stay, not because I'm contracted to, but because I choose to, because this is where I belong. The joy that lit Nathan's face was blinding. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Thank you. Thank you for choosing us. For choosing me. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. For bringing me here. For giving me a chance to be part of something beautiful. Nathan pulled back just enough to cup her face in his hands. May I kiss you? I've wanted to for months, but I didn't have the right. I wanted you to be free to choose first. I'm choosing now. Eliza rose on her toes. Kiss me, Nathan Hale. He kissed her with tenderness and passion, with months of restrained longing finally released. Eliza melted into him, wrapping her arms around his neck, feeling his heart pound against hers. The kiss deepened, grew more urgent, until they were both breathless and trembling. When they finally broke apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "How soon can we marry?" "Whenever you want." "Tomorrow?" Eliza laughed, giddy and surprised. "We need to tell the children first and make proper arrangements. Maybe next week?" "Next week," Nathan agreed. "I'll ride to town tomorrow, arrange things with the minister. We'll have a simple ceremony here at the ranch, just family. The twins should be part of it, help plan it, make them feel included." "Good idea." He kissed her again, soft and sweet. "You're going to be an amazing mother to them." "I'm going to try." Eliza laid her hand over his heart. "I'm going to try to be what all of you need. You already are." They stood together on the porch as night settled over the ranch, holding each other, planning their future. And for the first time since her father's death, Eliza felt completely, perfectly at peace. The next morning, they gathered the twins in the kitchen. Clara and Milo sat on the bench, looking curious and slightly worried. "Are we in trouble?" Milo asked. "No, sweetheart." Nathan pulled up a chair to sit at their level. "Miss Eliza and I have something important to tell you. Something that will affect all of us." Clara's eyes went wide. "Is Miss Eliza leaving?" "No, the opposite." Nathan glanced at Eliza, who nodded encouragingly. "I've asked Miss Eliza to marry me, to become my wife and your stepmother, and she said yes." For a moment, both children were silent, processing. Then Clara launched herself at Eliza, throwing her arms around her waist. "Really? You're going to be our mama? For real?" "If you want me to be." Eliza held the girl close. "I would never try to replace your mother, but I love you both very much, and I'd be honored to be part of your family officially." Milo was slower to react, his expression serious. "Papa, is this because we said we wanted Miss Eliza to stay? Because you don't have to marry her just because we like her." Nathan reached over and ruffled his son's hair. "I'm marrying Miss Eliza because I love her, because she makes me happy and makes our family whole. The fact that you and Clara love her too just makes it better." "But what about Mama?" Milo's voice was small. "Won't she be sad if we have a new Mama?" Eliza knelt beside him, taking his hands. "Your Mama loved you more than anything in the world, and I think she'd be happy knowing there's someone here who loves you too, who takes care of you and your Papa. Love isn't like pie, Milo. It doesn't run out when you share it. You can love your Mama's memory and also love me. There's room in your heart for both." Milo studied her face, searching for truth. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay, but you have to promise not to die like Mama did." The request was heartbreaking in its impossibility. Eliza pulled him into her arms. "I can't promise I'll never die, sweetheart. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise I'll be as careful as possible, and I'll be here as long as I possibly can. Is that enough?" Milo buried his face in her shoulder. "I guess it has to be." Clara joined the embrace, and suddenly Eliza was holding both children, feeling their small arms around her, feeling the weight of their trust and love. Nathan watched with shining eyes. "So, when is the wedding?" Clara asked, pulling back. "Can I wear a fancy dress? Can I help pick flowers?" "Next week, and yes to both." Eliza smoothed Clara's hair. "We'll make it special, a real family celebration." "Can I walk Miss Eliza down the aisle?" Milo asked. "Since she doesn't have a papa to do it?" Nathan's voice was rough with emotion. "That's a wonderful idea, son." "Then it's settled." Clara clapped her hands. "We're going to be a real family." "We already are a real family," Eliza corrected gently. "The wedding just makes it official." The twins accepted this with the adaptability of children, already moving on to excited planning. What kind of cake would there be? Could they invite Dr. Morrison? What would everyone wear? As their voices filled the kitchen with happy chatter, Nathan caught Eliza's eye across the table. The look they shared was full of wonder and gratitude and love. They were building something new from broken pieces, creating beauty from loss. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be hard days ahead, challenges to face, rumors to weather, but they would face them together, as a family. That afternoon, Nathan rode to town to make arrangements. Eliza spent the time with the twins, and it was Clara who noticed first. "You're smiling different," the girl said, studying Eliza's face. Like you have a secret happy. Maybe I do. Eliza pulled Clara onto her lap. Maybe I'm just happy about marrying your papa and being your mama. Are you going to have babies? Clara asked bluntly. Milo and I want a baby brother or sister. Eliza felt her face heat. That's something your papa and I will have to discuss. But even if we do, you and Milo will always be special. You were here first. You're the ones who helped me heal and find my place here. Good. Clara snuggled closer. Because we need you, Mama Eliza. We need you a lot. Mama Eliza. The title settled into Eliza's heart like a blessing. She held Clara close, feeling the precious weight of this child's trust, and sent up a silent prayer of thanks for the strange, winding path that had brought her here. When Nathan returned as the sun was setting, his face was troubled. What happened? Eliza asked, meeting him at the door. Town gossip is worse than I thought. He hung his hat on the peg, his movements stiff. Margaret Winters has been busy. Half the town thinks you're my mistress. The other half thinks I took advantage of a desperate woman. The minister... He paused. Reverend Jacobs refused to marry us, said it would be improper, given the circumstances. Anger flared in Eliza's chest. He has no right. He has every right. He's a minister. He can refuse to perform any wedding he feels is inappropriate. Nathan's jaw was tight. But there's another minister in the next town over, Reverend Matthews. Dr. Morrison knows him, says he's a good man, less concerned with appearances, more concerned with truth. I sent word asking if he'd come here to perform the ceremony. And if he refuses to, then we'll find someone else, or we'll travel to a town where no one knows us. Nathan took her hands. I'm not giving up on this, Eliza. We will get married, even if we have to ride all the way to Denver to do it. I don't care about a fancy wedding, Eliza said. I just care about being your wife. You'll be my wife. I promise you that. He pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. Margaret Winters and her brother can spread all the rumors they want. In the end, they can't stop us from being together. But that night, lying in her bed, Eliza wondered if Nathan was being too optimistic. The town's judgment was a powerful force. It could make their lives difficult, could hurt the children, could poison everything they were trying to build. She fell asleep praying for guidance, for strength, for the courage to face whatever came next. The answer came 3 days later in the form of Reverend Matthews himself. He arrived at the ranch in the afternoon, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a weathered face. Mr. Hale? Miss Moore? I'm Reverend Matthews. I came to discuss your request for a marriage ceremony. They invited him in, served him coffee, sat nervously while he studied them both. I've heard the rumors, Matthews said bluntly, about how Miss Moore came to be here, about the nature of your relationship. I want to hear the truth from you both before I make any decisions. So they told him everything, the auction, the contract, the difficult beginning, the children's grief and slow healing, how love had grown despite every obstacle. They held nothing back, laying their story bare. When they finished, Matthews was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. I've been a minister for 30 years. I've seen love in many forms, some conventional, some not. But I've learned to recognize real love when I see it. He looked at them both. What you have is real, complicated, yes. Unconventional, certainly, but real and true and worthy of blessing. I would be honored to perform your wedding ceremony. Eliza felt tears of relief spill down her cheeks. Thank you so much. When would you like to marry? Matthews asked. Nathan looked at Eliza. As soon as possible. Tomorrow, Eliza said firmly. Let's not wait any longer. Matthews nodded. Tomorrow it is. I'll return at noon. After he left, Nathan swept Eliza into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed breathlessly. Tomorrow you'll be my wife, he said, setting her down but keeping his arms around her. Tomorrow this becomes real and legal and permanent. It already feels real to me. Eliza rose on her toes to kiss him. But I'm glad we'll have it official. No more rumors, no more questions. Just us. Just family. The twins were ecstatic when they heard the news. They spent the rest of the day preparing, picking wildflowers for decorations, helping Eliza press her best dress, making plans for a celebration feast. That night, Eliza stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the ranch bathed in moonlight. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would become Mrs. Nathan Hale, stepmother to Clara and Milo, partner in this ranch and this life. She thought about the girl who'd stood on an auction block months ago, frightened and alone and certain her life was over. That girl could never have imagined this ending, this beginning. But here she was, on the eve of her wedding, surrounded by love and hope and possibility. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best ones. Sometimes being broken open was the only way to let the light in. Tomorrow she would marry the man she loved. Tomorrow her real life would begin. And Eliza Moore couldn't wait. The morning of her wedding day, Eliza woke before dawn to find Clara already sitting at the foot of her bed, watching her with solemn eyes. "I had a dream about Mama," the girl said quietly. "She was wearing her wedding dress, the one Papa keeps in the trunk. She told me to give it to you." Eliza sat up, her heart squeezing. "Clara, sweetheart, that dress belongs to your mother's memory. I couldn't possibly. She said you should wear it." Clara's voice was certain. "She said you're family now, and family shares what matters, and her wedding dress matters." "Did she really say that, or is this what you want?" Clara climbed onto the bed, curling into Eliza's side. "Both, maybe. But it feels right. Mama would want you to have something special to wear, and her dress is the most special thing we have." Eliza held the girl close, overwhelmed by the generosity of this gesture. "Are you sure? You and Milo might want to keep it, to remember her by." "We have lots of things to remember her by. We have pictures in her music box and the quilt she made." Clara looked up with those serious dark eyes. "But you don't have a wedding dress, and today is important. Please, Mama Eliza." The title still sent warmth flooding through Eliza's chest. She kissed Clara's forehead. "Then I would be honored to wear your mother's dress. Thank you for sharing it with me." They found the trunk in Nathan's room, after knocking and confirming he was already out doing morning chores. The dress was wrapped in muslin, carefully preserved. When Eliza lifted it out, she gasped. It was simple but beautiful. Ivory silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. The waist fitted, the skirt full. Martha Hale had clearly been a woman of taste and grace. "It's perfect," Clara breathed. "Try it on." The dress fit as if it had been made for Eliza. She stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing herself. She looked like a bride. She looked like she belonged. Milo appeared in the doorway, his eyes widening. "You look like a princess. Papa's going to cry when he sees you." "Your papa doesn't cry," Eliza said, though her voice was thick with emotion. "He does sometimes, when he thinks we're not looking." Milo came closer, reaching out to touch the lace carefully. "Mama was beautiful in this dress. Papa showed us the wedding picture once. You're beautiful too." "Thank you, sweetheart." Eliza knelt down, gathering both children into her arms. "Thank you for sharing this with me, for letting me be part of your family. I know this isn't easy, accepting someone new." "It's not hard," Clara said simply. "You're not new anymore. You're just you. You're Mama Eliza. You belong here." The ceremony was set for noon, and the morning passed in a blur of preparation. Eliza helped the twins into their Sunday best. Milo in a pressed shirt and clean trousers, Clara in a blue dress with ribbons in her hair. Dr. Morrison arrived early, offering to stand as witness, and his presence felt like a blessing. He'd been the one to help them through the fever, to see firsthand how this makeshift family had fought for each other. At 1:45, Eliza stood in her small room, smoothing the ivory silk one last time. Her hands were shaking. In 15 minutes, she would walk out of this room as Eliza Moore and return as Eliza Hale. Everything would change, and yet somehow, everything already had changed, weeks ago, when she'd stopped being just the housekeeper and become part of this family's heart. A knock at the door made her turn. "Come in." Nathan stood in the doorway, and his expression when he saw her took her breath away. Wonder, love, and something that looked like reverence crossed his face. "You're wearing Martha's dress," he said softly. "Clara gave it to me. She said—" Eliza paused, uncertain. "Is it all right? I know it must be difficult seeing someone else wear it." Nathan crossed to her, taking her hands. "It's more than all right. Martha would have loved you, Eliza. She would have loved how you care for our children, how you brought life back to this house. And she would have wanted you to wear this dress because, his voice caught, because you're not replacing her. You're continuing what she started. You're loving us the way she would have wanted us to be loved. Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks. I'll take good care of them, of all of you, I promise. I know you will. He wiped her tears gently. And I'll take care of you the way you deserve, the way I should have from the beginning, instead of buying you like property. You saved me that day, Eliza said fiercely. Maybe not in the way either of us intended, but you did. You gave me a home and a purpose and a family. You gave me everything. You gave me more. Nathan cupped her face in his hands. You gave me my life back. You gave my children their joy back. You gave all of us hope. They stood there for a moment holding each other until Milo's voice called from the main room. Reverend Matthews is here. It's time. Nathan smiled, brushing one more kiss across Eliza's forehead. Ready to become Mrs. Hale? I've been ready since the day I said yes. They walked out together and Eliza's breath caught at what she saw. The twins had transformed the main room. Wildflowers filled jars on every surface, purple asters and golden black-eyed Susans and white yarrow. The table had been pushed aside to create space, and sunlight streamed through the windows, making everything glow. Reverend Matthews stood before the fireplace, smiling warmly. Dr. Morrison waited to one side, looking pleased, and there, surprisingly, stood two more people, a couple Eliza didn't recognize. John and Sarah Fleming, Nathan explained quietly, our nearest neighbors 5 miles east, good people. I asked them to stand witness too. The Flemings smiled at Eliza with genuine warmth, and she felt some of her anxiety ease. Not everyone believed the town gossip. Some people could see the truth. Miss Moore, are you ready? Reverend Matthews asked. I am. But first, Eliza turned to the twins. Milo, you promised to walk me to your father. Will you? Milo's chest puffed with pride. He offered his arm with exaggerated formality, making everyone chuckle. Clara took her other arm, and together the three of them crossed the room to where Nathan waited. Who gives this woman to be married? Matthews asked, adapting the traditional words. We do, Clara and Milo said in unison, then stepped back to stand with Dr. Morrison. Nathan took Eliza's hands, and she felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. This was where she was meant to be. This was home. Matthews began the ceremony, his voice rich and warm. He spoke of love as a choice, as commitment renewed daily, as the foundation upon which families were built. He spoke of grief and healing, of loss and new beginnings, of how love could transform lives if people had the courage to accept it. Nathan and Eliza come before us today with a story that some might question, Matthews said, looking out at the small gathering. They met through circumstances that were painful for both. But I have seen many marriages in my years of ministry, and I can tell you this, the best marriages are not built on perfect beginnings. They're built on honest love, mutual respect, and the daily choice to honor your vows. He turned to Nathan. Nathan Hale, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Do you promise to love her, honor her, cherish her, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do. Nathan's voice was strong, certain. I promise all of that, and more. I promise to see her as my equal partner in all things, to respect her choices and her voice, to build a life together where she is valued and cherished every single day. Matthew smiled, then turned to Eliza. Eliza Moore, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Do you promise to love him, honor him, cherish him, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do. Eliza's voice rang clear. I promise to be his partner and his friend, to stand beside him through whatever comes, to help raise his children with love and patience, to make this house a home for all of us. The rings? Matthews prompted. Nathan produced 2 simple gold bands, clearly purchased recently in town. He slid one onto Eliza's finger, his hands gentle. With this ring I thee wed. All that I have I share with you. Eliza took the other band, sliding it onto Nathan's finger with trembling hands. With this ring I thee wed. All that I am, I give to you. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Matthews beamed at them. Nathan, you may kiss your bride. Nathan pulled Eliza into his arms and kissed her thoroughly, sweetly, in front of their small gathering. The twins cheered, Dr. Morrison applauded, the Flemings smiled, and Eliza felt joy bubble up inside her like champagne, bright and effervescent and perfect. When they broke apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "Hello, Mrs. Hale." "Hello, husband." Clara and Milo crashed into them, wrapping their arms around both adults in an exuberant group embrace. Eliza laughed, holding them all close, feeling the completeness of this moment. They were a family now, officially, legally, permanently. The celebration that followed was simple but joyful. Sarah Fleming had brought a cake, beautiful and decorated with candied violets. They ate and talked and laughed, and for a few hours the outside world with its gossip and judgment didn't exist. There was only this room, these people, this perfect beginning. As the afternoon wore into evening, the Flemings prepared to leave. Sarah took Eliza's hands at the door. "Don't let the town gossip hurt you," she said quietly. "John and I know the truth. We've watched Nathan struggle these past years, watched his children grieve, and we've seen how you changed everything. That's real. That matters more than anything Margaret Winters can say." "Thank you," Eliza said, grateful beyond words. "Thank you for being here today. We're neighbors. That's what neighbors do." Sarah smiled. "And if you need anything, anything at all, our door is always open." After they left, Dr. Morrison lingered a moment longer. "You're good for him," he told Eliza. "For all of them. I worried about Nathan after Martha died. Worried he'd lost himself completely. But you brought him back." "He brought me back too," Eliza said. "We saved each other." Morrison nodded, satisfied, and took his leave. Reverend Matthews was the last to go, pausing to clasp Nathan's hand. "Love her well," he said simply. "She's a rare woman to forgive how this began and choose to stay anyway." "I will," Nathan promised. "Every day for the rest of my life." Then they were alone, the four of them, their new family. The twins were wound up from excitement, chattering about the wedding, about the cake, about everything. Eliza listened with half her attention while helping Clara out of her fancy dress, feeling surreal and giddy and perfectly content. After the children were in bed, after the dishes were cleaned and the house settled into quiet, Nathan found Eliza standing on the porch, looking out at the stars. "Tired?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Overwhelmed," Eliza admitted, leaning back against his chest. "In the best way. This morning I woke up as your employee. Tonight I'm your wife. It doesn't quite feel real yet." "It's real." Nathan turned her in his arms to face him. "You're mine now, and I'm yours. For better or worse, for the rest of our lives." "I like the sound of that." Eliza traced the line of his jaw, marveling that she could touch him so freely now. "Nathan Hale, my husband. It's going to take some getting used to. We have time." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "We have all the time in the world." He led her inside through the quiet house to his room, their room now. Eliza's heart raced as he closed the door behind them, as he turned to her with love and desire clear in his eyes. "I've waited months to have you in my arms properly," he said, his voice rough. "Months of wanting you and holding back." "You don't have to hold back anymore." Eliza reached for the buttons of his shirt. "I'm your wife now. I want this. I want you." What followed was tender and passionate, awkward in moments as they learned each other, but perfect in its honesty. Nathan treated her like she was precious, like she was chosen, like she was loved. And Eliza gave herself fully, holding nothing back, trusting him with her body and her heart. Afterward, lying in his arms with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow, Eliza felt peace settle over her like a blanket. "Thank you," Nathan murmured into her hair. "For what?" "For saying yes, for staying, for loving us even when we didn't make it easy." His arms tightened around her. "For being exactly what we needed." "You're what I needed too." Eliza pressed a kiss to his chest. "A home, a family, a place to belong. You gave me all of that." "We're going to have a good life together," Nathan promised. "I'll make sure of it." And Eliza, drifting into sleep in her husband's arms, believed him completely. The next week settled into new rhythms. Eliza was no longer the housekeeper. She was the wife, the mother, the heart of the home. The twins adapted quickly, calling her Mama Eliza without hesitation, including her in everything. Nathan was more open, more present, sharing his thoughts and his work and his heart. But the town gossip didn't disappear. If anything, the hasty marriage fed the rumors. People whispered that Nathan had been forced to marry his mistress, that Eliza had trapped him, that the whole situation was scandalous. 3 weeks after the wedding, they went to town for supplies. The stares and whispers followed them through the general store. Women clutched their children closer when Clara and Milo approached. The shopkeeper was cold and formal, counting out their change with obvious disapproval. On the street outside, they encountered Margaret Winters with a group of other town ladies. Margaret's smile was sharp as a knife. "Mrs. Hale," she said, putting pointed emphasis on the title. "How domestic you've become. Though I suppose marriage was your only option, given the circumstances." Nathan's hand tightened on Eliza's, but she stepped forward before he could speak. "You're right, Mrs. Winters," Eliza said clearly. "Marriage was my best option, but not because I had something to hide or something to be ashamed of, because I fell in love with a good man who loves me in return, because I found a family who needed me as much as I needed them. If you find that scandalous, that says more about you than it does about us." Margaret's face reddened. "How dare you? How dare I what? Stand up for myself? Refuse to be shamed for finding happiness?" Eliza's voice was steady, calm. "I was sold at auction because my father's debts destroyed my life. Nathan Hale bought my contract and gave me a job. Over time, we fell in love and married. There's nothing improper in that story, Mrs. Winters. The only impropriety is you spreading lies to harm decent people. Everyone knows gossip and rumors. Very few people know the truth." Eliza looked at the gathered women, most of whom wouldn't meet her eyes. "I understand why you might believe the worst. A young woman, a widower, an auction contract. It looks questionable. But appearances aren't always truth. And the truth is that my husband is an honorable man who treats me with respect and love. Our marriage is real and legal and blessed by a minister of the church. If you can't accept that, that's your choice. But you won't make me ashamed of it." She took Nathan's arm. "Come on, let's go home." They walked away together, leaving the stunned women behind. Nathan was silent until they reached the wagon, then he pulled Eliza into his arms right there on the street. "You were magnificent," he said fiercely. "Absolutely magnificent." "I'm tired of being ashamed," Eliza said. "Tired of letting small-minded people make me feel less than I am. We have nothing to apologize for." "No, we don't." Nathan kissed her forehead. "And they can talk all they want. We know the truth." The twins who'd witnessed the confrontation looked worried. "Are people going to be mean to us now?" Milo asked. "Maybe," Eliza said honestly, kneeling beside him. "But that's their choice, not ours. We can't control what other people think or say. We can only control how we respond. And we respond by living our lives with honesty and integrity and love. And by not letting them see that it hurts," Clara added, wise beyond her years. "It's okay if it hurts, sweetheart. But yes, we don't let them win by making us feel ashamed." Eliza gathered both children close. "We're a family. That's what matters, not what Margaret Winters or anyone else thinks." On the drive home, Clara asked, "Mama Eliza, do you regret coming here? Do you wish Papa had never bought your contract?" Eliza looked back at the girl, then at Milo beside her, then at Nathan driving the wagon. Her family. Her choice. Her life. "Not for one single moment," she said firmly. "Every hard thing I went through led me here to all of you. How could I regret that?" The question seemed to satisfy them, and the twins relaxed into conversation about other things. But Nathan caught Eliza's hand, lacing their fingers together, and she saw gratitude and love in his eyes. That night, after the children were asleep, Nathan came to her with papers in his hand. "What's this?" Eliza asked. "Your contract. The original debt agreement." He handed them to her along with a match. "I want you to burn it. I should have done this the day we married, but I want you to be the one to destroy it. You were never my property, Eliza. But I want you to physically end that chapter." Eliza took the papers, looking at the legal language that had bound her to 5 years of service. Then she struck the match and held it to the corner. The paper caught, flames curling through the words, turning contract and debt and obligation to ash. They watched it burn together, and when the last ember died, Nathan pulled her into his arms. "You're free," he said, "completely free. You stay because you choose to, not because any contract says you must." "I know." Eliza held him tight. "I've known that for a while now, but thank you for making it official." The autumn deepened into winter, and life on the ranch took on its cold weather rhythms. Eliza learned to manage the house through snow and freezing temperatures, to preserve food and conserve resources, to keep everyone warm and fed. The twins thrived, growing taller and stronger, their grief transformed into memory rather than open wound. Christmas came, and Eliza made it special, decorating with pine boughs and berries, baking cookies with the children, creating traditions for their new family. On Christmas morning, Clara and Milo gave her a present they'd made themselves, a wooden picture frame containing a drawing they'd done together. It showed 4 stick figures holding hands in front of a house: Papa, Mama Eliza, Clara, and Milo. "For our family," Clara explained. "So you remember, you're really ours now." Eliza cried, clutching the frame to her chest. "I love it. I love you both so much." "We love you too, Mama," Milo said, and the title came so naturally now, with no hesitation or qualifier. Nathan watched from the doorway, his expression soft. Later, in private, he gave Eliza her present, a delicate locket on a gold chain. "Open it," he urged. Inside were 2 tiny photographs, one of Martha with the twins as babies, one of Eliza with the twins from just last month. "Both of you," Nathan explained. "Both mothers they've been blessed to have. I want you to wear this and remember that you're not replacing Martha. You're adding to her legacy. You're both part of our family's story." Eliza couldn't speak through her tears. She just held Nathan close, overcome by the thoughtfulness, by the recognition that she didn't have to erase Martha to claim her place in this family. By spring, something had shifted in town. The gossip hadn't disappeared, but it had lost its power. People saw the Hale family in church on Sundays, saw how the twins flourished, saw the obvious love and respect between Nathan and Eliza. Slowly, grudgingly, some began to accept that maybe the rumors had been wrong. Sarah Fleming became a good friend, visiting regularly and inviting Eliza to a ladies' quilting group. At first, Eliza was nervous, expecting judgment, but the women there were kind, curious, and eventually accepting. They saw her skill with the needle, heard her stories about the children, witnessed her quiet dignity. One afternoon in late April, Eliza was working in the garden when a wagon pulled up the drive. To her surprise, it was Margaret Winters, alone this time. Eliza stood, wiping dirt from her hands, wary. "Mrs. Hale," Margaret said stiffly, climbing down from the wagon. "May I have a word?" "Of course." Eliza gestured to the porch. "Would you like some water?" "Thank you." They sat in awkward silence while Eliza fetched 2 glasses. When she returned, Margaret was staring out at the ranch, her expression troubled. "I came to apologize," Margaret said abruptly, "for the rumors I spread, for the things I said about you and your husband. It was wrong." Eliza nearly dropped her glass. Thank you. What changed?" "My brother did something unforgivable. He tried to force Nathan to sell by threatening to spread even worse lies about your family. When Nathan refused, Thomas showed his true colors. He's not a concerned neighbor. He's a greedy, cruel man who'll destroy anyone to get what he wants." Margaret's hands twisted in her lap. "I was so focused on helping him, on believing his version of events, that I didn't see the truth. You're not the villain in this story. I am. And I'm sorry." "What happened with your brother?" Eliza asked. Nathan confronted him publicly, laid out all of Thomas's schemes and lies in front of the whole town. "My brother's reputation is ruined now, and mine along with it, because I helped him." Margaret looked at Eliza with genuine remorse. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see clearly now. Your family is good and decent. You didn't deserve what I did to you." Eliza was quiet for a moment, then said, "Thank you for saying that. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." "Will you forgive me?" "I will. But understand, I'm forgiving you for my own peace, not because what you did was acceptable. You hurt my family. You tried to shame me for finding happiness. That wasn't right. I know. Margaret stood. I won't take up more of your time. I needed to say it. After she left, Eliza sat on the porch, processing. Nathan found her there when he came in from the fields. You all right? He asked, sitting beside her. Margaret Winters just apologized to me. Nathan's eyebrows rose. Did she? She said you confronted Thomas publicly, destroyed his reputation. Eliza looked at her husband. You didn't tell me about that. It happened yesterday in town. Thomas cornered me outside the bank, made some threats. I'd had enough. Nathan's jaw set. I told him, and everyone within earshot, exactly what kind of man he is, what he's tried to do to our family, how he's been scheming to steal this ranch for years. By the time I was done, nobody in town will do business with him. That was risky. Maybe. But I'm done letting him hurt us, done letting anyone make you feel ashamed. Nathan took her hand. You're my wife, the mother of my children. You deserve respect, and I'll make sure you get it. Eliza leaned against him, feeling protected and valued. I love you. I love you too, more than I can say. Summer came in a rush of heat and growth. The ranch prospered under their joint care, Nathan managing the livestock and land, Eliza managing the home and finances. They were true partners, making decisions together, supporting each other. And in early July, Eliza realized she was pregnant. She told Nathan one evening after the twins were asleep, watching his face carefully for his reaction. A baby? His voice was hushed with wonder. We're going to have a baby? Yes, if all goes well sometime in late winter. Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Thank you for this gift. We made it together, Eliza reminded him, laughing. I can't take all the credit. They told the twins the next morning. Clara and Milo were ecstatic, already planning what kind of sibling they wanted, what names they liked, how they'd help take care of the baby. Will the baby call you Mama Eliza too? Clara asked. The baby will probably just call me Mama, Eliza said, since I'll be the only mother they know from the beginning. Is that all right with you? Both twins considered this seriously, then nodded. That's fair, Milo decided. We had our first mama, and now we have you, but the baby only gets you, so they should just call you Mama. The logic was simple and perfect. Eliza kissed both their foreheads, overwhelmed by their generosity. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Eliza's body changed, growing round with new life, and Nathan was attentive and protective. The twins talked to her belly, made drawings for their future sibling, helped prepare the small room that would become the nursery. In late February, on a night when the wind howled around the house and snow fell thick, Eliza went into labor. Nathan rode through the storm to fetch Dr. Morrison, while Sarah Fleming stayed with Eliza and the frightened twins. The labor was long and difficult, but not dangerous, and as dawn broke over the snow-covered ranch, a baby's cry filled the house. A girl! Dr. Morrison announced, placing the squalling infant in Eliza's arms. Healthy and strong. Eliza looked down at her daughter, perfect tiny features, a shock of dark hair, lungs that worked beautifully judging by her cries, and felt love crash over her like a wave. Nathan appeared in the doorway, snow still dusting his shoulders, his face pale with worry. Eliza? Come meet your daughter, Eliza said, her voice thick with emotion. He crossed to the bed, staring down at the baby with wonder. She's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed Eliza gently. Thank you. Thank you for her. For all of this. The twins were allowed in moments later, scrambling onto the bed to see their new sister. She's so small, Clara breathed. What's her name? Eliza and Nathan had discussed this, had made their decision together. Her name is Hope, Eliza said, because that's what she represents. Hope for the future, hope for our family. Hope Hale, Milo tested the name. I like it. Hello, baby Hope. I'm your big brother. They spent the morning as a family of 5, marveling at the new life they'd created, at how complete their family felt now. Dr. Morrison and Sarah left them to their joy, and the house settled into peaceful quiet. That evening, with Hope sleeping in her cradle and the twins finally convinced to go to their own beds, Nathan and Eliza sat together by the fire. "A year ago, I couldn't have imagined this," Nathan said quietly. "Being happy, having hope, looking forward to tomorrow instead of just surviving it. A year ago, I was standing on an auction block, certain my life was over." Eliza laced her fingers with his. "And now look at us. A family, a home, a future. You changed everything, Eliza. The day I bought your contract was the day my real life started again." "No," Eliza corrected gently. "The day I chose to stay, really stay, not because of the contract, but because I wanted to. That's when both our lives started again. We chose this, Nathan. We chose each other and this family and this love. That's what makes it real." Nathan pulled her close, and they sat together watching the fire, listening to their baby daughter's soft breathing, feeling the peace of knowing they were exactly where they belonged. Months passed. Hope grew from tiny infant to laughing baby. The twins adored their little sister, fighting over who got to hold her, who could make her smile. The ranch prospered. The town gossip faded to nothing as people saw the truth. This was a real family, built on real love. On a warm autumn afternoon, Eliza stood on the porch holding Hope, watching Nathan work with the twins in the nearby pasture. They were learning to rope fence posts, the twins' attempts clumsy but determined, Nathan's patience endless. She thought about the girl who'd stood on that auction platform, frightened and alone. That girl had thought her life was ending. She'd thought being sold was the worst thing that could happen. She'd been wrong. Being sold had led her here, to this ranch, to this family, to this love. The path had been painful and complicated, but it had brought her home. Clara ran toward the house, her face bright with joy. "Mama, come see! I roped the post on my first try!" Mama. Not Mama Eliza anymore. Just Mama. Because that's what she was now, fully, completely, without reservation. "I'm coming, sweetheart," Eliza called back. She carried Hope down the porch steps, crossing the yard to her family. Nathan caught her eye and smiled, and in that smile she saw their whole story. The difficult beginning, the slow building of trust, the choosing of love over fear. She'd been auctioned, yes, she'd been purchased like property, but in the end, she'd been chosen. And she had chosen in return. And that made all the difference.